break to be precise. And let us begin by agreeing on a few facts. At the best of times, politicians are opportunistic. They will highlight issues that best suit their political interests. This isn't a bad thing by itself. But being selective, that is, speaking only when it benefits the party or an individual, cannot extend to all issues. For example, and think about it, a crime against humanity is a crime against the Constitution's letter and spirit, and it should be called out unequivocally, without fear or favor. It can't be that one human tragedy is worthy of attention and not the other. How does one, after all, distinguish between the value of one life over another? Think about that, viewers. How does one, for example, choose to only visit the victims of ethnic violence in Manipur and not the victims of political or religious violence in Chopra, West Bengal or Udaipur, Rajasthan? That is what is being asked of the Congress party today as it sings hosannas to Rahul Gandhi, who is on a visit to Manipur to allegedly provide a salve to the victims of rioting there. Sample this from the Congress chief spokesperson Jairam Ramesh, who has tried to turn the Congress science visit into a virtue. He says, and I quote him, "Today the non-biological Prime Minister goes to Moscow, while the leader of the opposition in the Lok Sabha heads for Assam in Manipur. Of course, the drumbeaters of the non-biological Prime Minister have claimed that he stopped the Russia-Ukraine war for some time. Presumably, this Moscow trip will lead to even more bizarre claims. This is Rahul Gandhi's third visit to Manipur ever since the state blew up 14 months ago. The non-biological Prime Minister has not found the time nor even had the inclination to visit Manipur even for a few hours after the grave crisis erupted on May 3, 2023. He has not even met the Chief Minister of the state, who happens to be from his own party, and other political leaders of the state, including MLAs and members of parliament." Unquote. Now, viewers, it hasn't taken very long for the BJP to attack the Congress, to hit back at it for its alleged hypocrisy. The BJP says the ethnic conflict in Manipur is a legacy of Congress party. The state has witnessed the killing of civilians, police and army personnel for decades while Congress was in power. In 1990, 300 people were killed. 1,100 people died in 1993. 400 were killed in 1997. In 2001, 95 people died. 140 people were killed in 2003. In 2006, 105 people died. 200 people were killed in 2008. In 2010, 220 people died and 165 people died in 2012. Forget third time fail Rahul Gandhi. Did any Congress leader, including Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, who was a member of the Rajya Sabha from Assam, visit the strife-torn region? Balak Buddhi is simply indulging in Sikh tragedy tourism, unquote. This, viewers, is the BJP's rebuttal. Now, without taking sides and just stating the obvious, the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, has only very rarely met with victims of rights abuses or tragedies. His stand has been consistent with emphasizing relief and justice over token expressions of empathy. This, however, isn't true of the Congress. The following hard facts illustrate the point that it has demonstrated an unsavory tendency to cherry-pick tragedies to highlight. Let me run you through some of what the Congress has chosen to ignore. Now, I'm not attributing motives, viewers, but Tamil Nadu, the Hoot tragedy there, has claimed almost 70 lives. Kallakurichi is where this happened, where certain people consume spurious liquor. But viewers, the Congress party or its scion or any of its top leaders have not visited that spot. Then, viewers, let's turn our attention to the public flogging in Bengal, where a woman was thrashed in public in North Dinajpur for indecent behavior. TMC MLA Hamidul Rahman defends the action, calls it a Muslim custom. Her fault was that allegedly she is a supporter of the BJP. Viewers, looking a little further, Bengal post-poll violence, several displaced after, quote, targeted attacks, unquote, post the Lok Sabha results. The Kolkata High Court directs the state government to ensure, quote, the safe return, unquote, of the displaced. Has this led to any outrage in Congress circles? Rahul Gandhi visiting Sandesh Khali or other disturbed areas, expressing empathy with the victims there, embracing some of the victims there, and castigating the state chief minister Mamata Banerjee? No, viewers, that hasn't happened. Sandesh Khali horror, sexual assault and land grab cases against TMC strongman Shahjahan Sheikh have been filed. Complaints against Shahjahan Sheikh and his aides were piling up since 2019. Yet, viewers, the Congress has never looked askance, has never empathized with any of the victims, and even now has come out and hinted that this entire issue is a concoction. Then, viewers, Karnataka temple deaths, 6 dead and 100 hospitalized due to water contamination at Tumkuru temple. No one from the Congress, viewers, especially the topmost leaders, went there and empathized, cried on the shoulder of any of the victims. Kerala ragging horror, 28-year-old student was tortured for 29 hours by seniors and classmates. When these incidents take place in BJP-ruled states, viewers, you will often find Congress leaders either visiting or being very critical. A body found hanging inside the bathroom of Wayanad College, and the list is long. What does this selective empathy say about the Congress? Is it endemic to the party? If so, why is it endemic? Some who have tried to answer this question will point to the distant past, viewers. Take, for example, the selective empathy expressed by Congress party's greatest member, Mahatma Gandhi. When the pre-independence Mofla riots in Kerala shocked the nation, Bapuji chose to blame the victims, who were the Hindus, and not the perpetrators, who were Muslims. At the time, the Congress didn't oppose Mahatma Gandhi. Dr. Ambedkar, who is, of course, the framer of our constitution, for instance, took a very unfavorable view. For him, the riots were, and I quote, indescribable, blood-curdling atrocities committed by the Moplas against the Hindus, unquote. The Congress, according to its critics, put the need to appease Muslims over the human rights of Hindus. We're talking about before independence. Are those cynical political calculations still being made by the Congress, especially in the context of Manipur and Bengal or even Tamil Nadu? Viewers, those are fundamental questions. Let's open this up for a conversation, for a debate, call it what you want. And I want to, first begin with Tehseen Poonawala. Mr. Poonawala, we have with us a panel, well-balanced panel of intelligent people. Now, I'm sure because they are all intelligent, like you, they will see through this opportunism, this rank opportunism, as I have elaborated. I'm sure you will agree with me that there is a degree of selectiveness at work here when Rahul Gandhi visits people in Manipur or shows up in Hathras for the stampede, but ignores similar acts of negligence, crimes, as I have mentioned. Would you agree with me, or would you say that I'm being highly selective myself?
Thank you, Rahul, for having me on the show. Couple of things. I am shocked and I'm appalled that the leader of opposition is being attacked on a national television. I'm actually shocked and appalled for standing by 50,000 people who have been made homeless. I'm shocked and appalled that rather than questioning the Honorable Prime Minister who's refused to go to Manipur or refused to speak the complete truth on Manipur, Rahul Gandhi is being called all sorts of names. The son of a martyr, the grandson of a martyr. We can go back into history, bring Muslims in, bring Mahatma Gandhi in, do whatever you want. I'm not going to get into it. That is everybody's own moral compass. The fact of the matter is, let's just stick to Manipur. And the fact with Manipur is the Honorable Prime Minister and the Honorable Home Minister have failed where Manipur is concerned. Let me take you through the facts one by one. No other state in India, not even Kashmir, from where you've been a victim, Rahul, you've suffered terribly in Kashmir, has seen an influx of such kind of people where the Indian army has got up to say that the situation is out of control. The Assam Rifles has said that the situation is out of control. On May 2nd, when the Assam Rifles, CRPF, Indian serving army men who serve in CRPF, tried to enter Manipur, the Manipur Rifles, the police of the Manipur division, stopped them from entering. And they've said it on record in Britain that had we been allowed to enter, women would not have been paraded naked. To your colleague, The Chief Minister of Manipur has said it's not 2 women who are paraded naked, several hundred women were paraded naked. Therefore, internet was shut off so that fair journalists like you could not ask him questions. Remember, the man shut off internet so that people would not know women were being paraded naked. This is the Chief Minister whose tweets, and I'm saying this and I'm using these words with a lot of responsibility, his disgusting tweets had to be taken down by the PMO. PMO had to tell him to take off his tweets. The kind of tweets he poured oil within fire. That is the kind of tweets the Chief Minister of Manipur did. The fact is he's continuously blamed Myanmar for what has happened. If Myanmar is to be blamed and it's an influx from Myanmar, what is the Defense Ministry and the Prime Minister doing? They were obviously not saying. Tell me another state, including Kashmir, including Punjab, including any other state in the Northeast, where 4,675 assault weapons, including AK-47, AK-56, have been taken away, and those who have taken away have left their Aadhaar card and live ammunition. That is the state of affairs today in Manipur. The fact is the Manipur MP, despite being promised, was not allowed to speak in Parliament. They didn't allow the inner line Manipur MP to make his points. Rahul Gandhi has gone there with a healing touch. Sure, every single day. Please take the pants off Rahul Gandhi. I don't care. But that man on your screen there, the leader of opposition, has gone there with a healing touch. He's gone there to bring two communities together. I don't expect anything from the BJP.
Okay.
But the least I expect is not to mock him or to put him down.
You've had a fairly long introduction, which is important, which is very important in the need to have a balanced conversation here. But Tehseen, Mr. Poonawalla, let me just tell you that it's not as if the Prime Minister or the Home Minister or the Chief Minister has been given some sort of free pass. Those questions have been asked. They continue to be asked. We are continuing to ask those questions. I myself, in the past, welcomed the Supreme Court's observations, saying that the deprivations against women there were a matter of serious concern. So those things have been asked. And even if they, let's say, for a moment, weren't asked, does that preclude the charge that the Congress is being selective? That's the one thing you have not been able to answer. Nonetheless, it's okay.
May I make one point?
One second.
Just one point.
Look, we can continue to scratch at wounds.
Just one point.
For eternity.
I just have one point.
To derive political mileage. And you have accused you have accused the BJP of doing so on a number of occasions, if you remember.
True.
On Kashmir, on, in fact, the Godhra as opposed to the Gujarat riots. Several times you have accused the BJP of raking up certain issues, honoring certain types of individuals because it involves direct political messaging to a particular cadre. So when that charge is put at your door, I would have expected slightly more balanced view.
I just have one thing to say. Okay, forget the Congress. I'm saying the Congress is political, is the worst political party. No, I just have one point to say. I just have one point to say. When you were in your earlier channel, and I was with you, and I remember you'd always kindly give me the space, and you still give me the space, to question the Home Minister. Why was he campaigning in Karnataka rather than being in Manipur? Let me finish. When the Home Minister went to Manipur, which is May 28th, the women who were paraded naked happened on May 4th. Yet the FIR wasn't registered until you, Rahul, took up the issue. You took it up. The Home Minister should be embarrassed.
Of course,
that
you can ask all those questions, and I am not actually against Mr. Gandhi going to Manipur. It's his right. He's the leader of the opposition. But let's be a little more consistent. That's how I began. I wasn't attacking the Congress or Rahul Gandhi in particular. I was just saying let's be consistent, because you can't sort of put the value of one life over the other. Anyhow, before I come to you, Charu Pragya, let me just bring in Dr. Ranganathan. Let's then get into the politics of it. I just want to look at it from the hypocrisy angle, or whether we are right in sort of suggesting that there is an element of politics here. Dr. Ranganathan.
Good evening, Rahul, and good evening to my fellow panelists. There is absolutely nothing wrong in Rahul Gandhi or anybody else visiting Manipur. But the fact of the matter is that the wild politicking over horrendous crimes against women must end. I think every Indian has to realize what happened in Manipur was blood-curdling. No two ways about it. The criminals must be punished. It was unacceptable that one of the perpetrators wasn't arrested for 2 months, but then is suddenly caught within a day of the video going viral, what Tehseen talked about. Heads should have rolled for this. State and police inaction must be condemned wherever it happens in every state by every police. Unfortunately, this is not the case. What is the truth about Manipur? Yes, as I have said, before as well, on your show multiple times, Mr. Modi should have spoken on Manipur right away when the violence started, but then so should have the Congress. Did you know it was the UPA in 2013 that asked the Manipur Congress government then to look into the demand for ST status for the Meiteis, who had been demanding it since independence? The Congress did not act. Governments changed both at the center and the state, and both did not act. Then the High Court asked a couple of years ago for the government to act, and that is what led to all the violence. Inexplicably, the same High Court then redacted its demand for the action. But until then, it was too late. Two tribes are now at loggerheads. Hundreds of churches, hundreds of temples have been burned. But of course, it is BJP's fault. The Manipur horror is being highlighted, and rightly so. But the same Congress, outraging right now, remained silent when a 35-year-old woman gang raped in Jotwada, Congress-ruled Rajasthan, self-immolated herself in police state because of police inaction. You talk about police election in Manipur, but you're silent about police election in Congress-ruled Rajasthan. Why? When NSUI General Secretary is arrested for rape after local outrage exposes police inaction in Kanker, Congress-ruled Chhattisgarh. When the NHRC takes suo motu cognizance after a Dalit woman is gang raped by 5 men after tying up her husband in Thanganji, Congress-ruled Rajasthan, and the video made viral, but the police does not take action because of elections. When the Calcutta High Court blasts the TMC-ruled Bengal government for inaction on multiple gang rape cases and castigates it for not even registering an FIR in 60% of such crimes. When a 13-year-old is gang raped in Gurdaspur, AAP-ruled Punjab, Congress-allied, and the police does not act for 6 months and allegedly even allows the perpetrator to flee the country. There are dozens of such horrendous rape cases where the state and the police did not act or conducted shoddy investigations. Are these horrors any less deserving of our outrage, I ask you? Are these victims suffering less? Did the Supreme Court take note of any of these horrendous instances? You have to understand the Congress psyche. It outrages selectively and only highlights crimes in BJP-ruled state. Fair enough. Because then you can speak truth to power and criticize Modi. What is it that the Congress leader Shiraj Jivon said during the Hathras rape incident? Quote, 2 people should die from each side. A leader should die or some common man should die. Rahul Gandhi will come to the scene only after the bullets start flying, unquote. In fact, at the time of the UP Hathras rape incident, a woman in Alwar, Congress-ruled Rajasthan, was raped and jumped in a well because police refused to act. Her father hung himself from a tree. Did you even know of this? Did Tessin even know of this? Did Justice Chandrachud know of this? He was safe from looking into the victim's father's eyes. You know why? Because the father is dead. Ultimately, what is the solution to this selectivity, Rahul? There isn't one.
There's one. And you know, Dr. Ranganathan, let me jog your memory back a little bit. I don't know if you know that the electorate has begun to see through this. You see this hypocrisy. And wherever there have been Congress-ruled state governments where there has been a collective silence, they have been punished. Now, I just want to ask you, Dr. Ranganathan, do you know how many elections from the states that the Congress ruled have they won back in the last 5 years?
None.
0. So, viewers, we're not fools sitting here. And that's why I began by saying that, look, go out there, please. All these outrages, and I began by saying that. Look, all of them must be, yes.
Rahul, just 10 seconds.
Yeah.
I forgot. In fact, when everybody else in the Congress, outside of it, the supporters were demanding that Manipur be acted upon. Do you remember one Congress MLA stood on the assembly floor of the Assembly of Rajasthan and said, हमें अपने गिरेबान में झांक के देखना चाहिए राजस्थान में क्या हो रहा है?
Yes.
You know what happened within 24 hours?
That MLA is in BJP now.
He was sacked.
He was not getting a ticket.
I'm saying.
Let's not. No.
I'm
He's in
saying,
BJP.
I'm
he
saying.
was not getting a ticket.
I started.
He waited for a ticket in BJP.
Okay, Mr.
Let's be clear
Poonawala.
on it.
No,
Gentlemen.
you know what, then Tessin, that is the
Now he's
defense.
forgotten the MLA, the Lal Dairi, that MLA.
The one...
Please, yaar.
Okay, 1 second. I started and I quote myself. At the best of times, politicians are opportunists. They will highlight issues that best suit their political interests. This isn't a bad thing. But being selective, that is speaking only when it benefits the party or an individual, cannot extend to all issues. There cannot be selectiveness over outrages of the proportion that we are talking about today. Now, Dr. Raman and Charu Pragya, let me bring you in. Dr. Raman, let me just start by asking you this. Do you think that, fair enough, you know, all victims have a right to justice, but do you believe that some have a lesser shot at it? Let me give you an example now. And I want you to tell me what you think about this. You will agree with me that Mr. Bhindranwala Jarnail Bhindranwala was a symbol of exclusivism. Would you agree, yes or no?
Rahul?
No, yes or no? Because I haven't finished my question. Okay, forget it. You don't want to take a position on it, but anyhow, Bhindranwala, viewers, as we all know, was a symbol of a particular kind of Sikh exclusivism. He, viewers, under his watch, enabled a pogrom against Hindus. They were pulled out of buses, shot up, lined up and shot. Now, viewers, one would think that Mr. Bhindranwala, who was really a Hitler, would have been castigated by everyone, rank and file, of every political party. Again, I'm using the word every political party, viewers. But you know what, viewers? You have a situation where a rap star, who was completely dazzled by Bhindranwala, was welcomed by the Congress party, given a ticket. That rap star is now, of course, eliminated, dead, murdered, assassinated, call it what you want. Dr. Raman, do you think that Hindu lives are anywhere lower in the hierarchy, that the Congress should have actually undignified the death of so many of them by doing this?
Rahul,
where was the Congress then outraging? I remember when certain tickets were given to to another Pragya, Sadhvi Pragya, sorry. It became a huge issue.
Rahul,
but not so here.
2-3 points, and I hope you'll allow me to speak uninterrupted
please.
like the others were.
Yeah, of course.
The first point is you don't seem to have smelt the coffee of what the result of the general election held recently actually said.
Okay.
The second point is that Rahul Gandhi is making an earnest attempt to try and apply a healing touch to Manipur. Now, the point is, if this was a political opportunistic visit, then the governor of Manipur has met Rahul Gandhi and some of the officials have been introduced to him. So I think you've got to ask yourself the question. I mean, it is not mandatory for a governor to meet the leader of the opposition when he goes to on a visit to any particular state. But in this case, there has been a meeting with the governor. So you should probably ask the governor why she was promoting opportunistic visits of Congress leaders or leader of the opposition. Look, let's face facts. What has happened in Manipur is a national tragedy. And the sad part of it is that the Honorable Prime Minister has not felt it necessary to visit the state once. This is not a problem which has been happening for the last 1 week or 2 weeks. Over 130 people are dead and 60,000 people are living in relief camps, displaced away from their homes. So why is it that we are seeking to politicize the visit of a leader of the opposition who is making his third visit, for God's sake?
Right.
I mean, first visit, okay, political visit, election coming up.
Can I come in now,
Yeah,
please?
Now the elections are over.
Okay, elections are over.
The Congress has won both the MP seats in Manipur.
Okay.
He is
Charu
not going
Pragya.
there for any electoral gain, for God's sake.
Okay, not for any electoral gain. Charu Pragya.
Now, I have listened to everyone very patiently for very long, and everyone's all praises for Rahul Gandhi visiting Manipur today. But tell me, if this is not political opportunism, why is it that he cannot feel the pain of the people who have suffered in the Hooch tragedy? If he can go all the way to Manipur, stopping by in Assam, by the way, why could he not visit the refugee camps where the flood victims are housed? He didn't have time for that. He landed there. So I am not going to go back into the past and year by year give you a breakup of how more than 2,700 lives have been lost in Manipur during the Congress regime. Let's talk today. He has time to go to states only and only which have a BJP government. Sandesh Khali, today we got a judgment from the Supreme Court where they are asking the state government why one individual is being shielded. Nobody has an answer to that, and Rahul Gandhi didn't even want to visit the victims of Sandesh Khali. Forget that. More recently in Chopra, women were beaten up in a very Talibani style, quoting Sharia law. and nobody wanted to speak about it, least of all Rahul Gandhi. He's very close, he could have gone there. So the fact is that while you go back to Manipur, you're only going there for political reasons, and if that was not the case, and if you played on fairness, even 1%, you would have been concerned about the atrocities on people in Rajasthan, what has happened in Tamil Nadu. In fact, in Tamil Nadu, in the last 2 months, 4 leaders have died. One of them was a Congress leader. Did we even hear a peep out of Rahul Gandhi regarding that? Absolutely not. See, the fact is the central government is working round the clock to bring this situation under control, and that is a fact. The fact is that Modi ji spoke in parliament not once but twice, and the opposition either chooses to stage a walkout or irritate the speakers to such an extent that we as viewers can barely hear what is going on. So much of heckling goes on. So
why is he not visited?
The truth is that Congress party has become one. Sir, you know, I didn't speak over you. In fact, I waited for 22 long minutes to get my first word out, and I don't understand why you don't even have the decency to let me have my 90 seconds say before you start interrupting me. I didn't interrupt you, and Rahul knows I was the last one to speak. So let me. Can I continue, please?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Do you have a problem with understanding turn by turn or basic courtesy?
It's not fair. You asked for your time, you got your time. Tehseen asked for his time, he got his. Dr. Ranganathan got his. Why shouldn't Charu Pragya also be allocated her time? Please, go ahead. Yeah.
So, apart from listing everything from Assam to Sandesh Khali to Chopra to everything in Hooch, it is very apparent now that when the government wants to answer questions for the world to hear, Congress wants to heckle. It is very obvious that the Congress wants to turn up at places where they get their 15 seconds of fame, and Rahul Gandhi leads this. I have not seen him be a part of positive politics at all, because if that was the case, he wouldn't have run away from the flood victims of Assam. And please, Tehseen, tell me one logical reason why this has happened. And let me tell you, our Home Minister, MOS Home, they have been stationed there, they have been visiting, the Chief Minister is working, and you had been asking for the Prime Minister to speak, but once the Prime Minister starts speaking, you have something else which is very urgent, and you know what the urgency is? Let's go stand outside Parliament. So that cannot be allowed to continue, and then you can't turn around and say, like, what has the BJP done?
Charu Pragya is making a good point. When you put those questions and the Prime Minister responds, you walk out. You choose not to hear. You only choose what you want to hear. You only visit those who you think will be beneficial to you in a messaging sense to visit. No, one second. It's very important. Today, the opposition, hang on, we cannot forget the opposition tonight. Because viewers, the opposition itself has tried to politicize Rahul Gandhi's visit. It's not the BJP. It was Jairam Ramesh who edified it, number one. Why should it be edified, viewers? Should sympathy, should humanity be edified, or should it come naturally to people? Should it be something that we must talk up? Or is it a virtue that should be present among politicians? These are questions. Yes, Dr. Ranganathan, before...
I want to make 2 points.
Yeah, okay. You make your 2 points. One second. No, then I'll have to give her time, so I'm not going to have time. I'm just letting Dr. Ranganathan now come in and say his one bit because I have to take a break. I'm really under pressure. I gave all of you chaps 4.5 minutes each, please. And do the math. Yes.
I didn't get 4.5.
No.
Well, you didn't choose to take it. What could I do? Yeah, okay.
No,
I never cut you off,
I
sir.
had plenty more to say. You stopped me.
I never stopped you. Charu Pragya, you asked her a question, she responded. Come on. Dr. Ranganathan.
No. Okay, anyway, never mind.
No, I think the reality is that the truth is making everyone else on this panel beside me and beside you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
That is true.
Prime Minister Modi should have visited Manipur.
Yeah.
Hundreds of temples have been demolished, churches have been demolished, people have been raped, people have been rendered homeless. He should have visited, number one. Number two, the Congress waxing eloquent is the most hypocritical of all. I'm not just talking about the crimes that are happening in Congress ruled state or were happening. I'm talking about Manipur itself.
Yeah.
It was the UPA that asked the then Congress government in Manipur to act. It didn't act. The BJP or at the center asked the BJP government of Manipur to act. It didn't act. And thirdly, I would like to ask Dr. Sumantraman to give him 30 seconds of my time. Does he condemn the High Court for redacting what it demanded?
Go ahead, Dr. Raman, 30 seconds, please.
Look, first of all, that order of the court was what set off, at least was the immediate provocation for what happened in Manipur. And that is a tragedy. That is a tragedy. It was subsequently
You condemn the redaction of the High Court.
look, it is not for me to condemn the judiciary, because for obvious reasons.
No, what do you mean judiciary? Sir, enlightened
No,
criticism is not going to be objected to. It's not contempt.
I don't
Please.
agree with that order, Rahul. I don't agree with the original order.
Fair enough. Okay.
Therefore, I agree that the order which came should not have come. Because of it, it served to be the last straw, which sort of set off this conflagration.
But
very little has been done.
Reservation should be
Viewers, I have run out of time. I just want to end by saying, we cannot anymore, whether we are in the BJP or the Congress or this or that, viewers, be selective. Either you be completely blind to all outrages, don't go in a token manner and put your arms around people, or then you do it, but you do it across the board. I don't think that's asking too much. I'll take a short break, viewers. The Prime Minister is meeting the Russian President, but it's all turned into a massive political controversy back here. Why? We'll tell you all about it.
Around 100 mm to 150 mm, the entire Mumbai submerged into water. But this time in the early morning, rainfall was around 300 mm, and due to this, the most of the parts of the Mumbai are submerged into the water. And as a few minutes ago, BMC alerted a new alert that around in the afternoon there is a high tide. So BMC has informed the people not to go outside their home. Besides this, private school and colleges are also closed in Mumbai, but the private offices are still working. So now the BMC has informed the private offices that if you don't have any urgency, then close your office today.
All right, Preeti, please stay with us. We're also being joined by CNN News 18's Yasha Kotak, who's live with us from Ghatkopar. Yasha, how is the situation over there?
So yes, as of now, when you speak of Ghatkopar station, what has in fact come to forth is that several, of course, there are several parts, which is the western line as well as certain parts in the central line, be it around Bhandup and Nahur area, or for that matter around Kurla, where there is still waterlogging. In some parts, particularly here, what you can see is a bit of the tracks have been submerged. However, train movement has started slowly. In fact, around 5:30 was where there was extremely high waterlogging on the tracks as well. But as of now, when you speak of the central line, train movement has begun slowly on several stretches, particularly some parts of the platform. They've been kept some tracks, that is the slow line tracks and the fast line tracks, have been kept shut as of now because the waterlogging still continues at Sayan, or for that matter at Bhandup as well. But here, when you speak of some of the outstation trains, they've been allowed to move. Central line, of course, has issued advisory about how there have been 5 trains which have been shut. The 5 long distance train, which includes the Deccan Queen, also for that matter Pragati Express. All of these trains have as of now been cancelled because beyond Thane is where we see there is a limited movement of trains. Also, you see this is of course one of the busiest stations. But today, considering the fact that there have been advisories that have been issued by Central Railway as well as by the BMC asking people to stay indoors, which is where of course a lot of people had gotten to know early in the morning that
Viewers, though Prime Minister Modi had first met Russian President Putin in 2001 as Chief Minister of Gujarat when he accompanied Atal Bihari Vajpayee in his delegation, his latest summit meeting tonight, which is also the 11th overall, is of arguably the most consequence. This is because the two leaders are meeting after a gap of 3 years, during which a lot of potential irritants have gathered underfoot. Here's a quick look at what is broadly on the table. Viewers, the two leaders will go out there and look to troubleshoot problems that have been unaddressed largely over the last 3 years, which was when the two leaders last met at the summit level. This meeting is critical, viewers, very critical, to strengthening trade ties which have lacked the impressive alignment on strategic defense and space-related interests. So trade needs to be boosted and avenues have to be found. Then there's the deepening mission-critical energy partnership and insulating it from Western pressure. As you know, there have been a lot of pressure on India from the West, Europe powers, including the United States, outside of Europe, of course, to cut off this relationship that India has where it purchases oil from Russia. Then there is a need to intensify to further layer strategic partnership to serve as a geopolitical hedge. Now, there are so many pressures. It's always good to have allies, viewers. Broadening the rapport to leverage Moscow for influence over an expansionist China. So if Prime Minister Modi and Putin can constantly layer, deepen their association, have a good rapport, Prime Minister Modi can technically pick up the phone and say, look, can you help me in getting the Chinese off our backs, etc., etc. So these are important meetings, viewers. These are not some things that, are done for the cameras. Now, given the mission criticality of the meeting and the need to develop fresh thinking to further align mutually beneficial interests, it is important to make an accurate assessment of the state of the relationship. After all, a strong foundation can only be on solid ground. But what if one were to describe the shape of an elephant in the dark? Wouldn't different people describe it differently depending on what part they were touching? Wouldn't that be a recipe for disaster when identifying the exact shape of the issue or the problem? Unfortunately, that's what the opposition has done by politicizing the meeting between Modi and Putin and by choosing to view the relationship under NDA's watch through a partisan prism. Fortunately, the facts presented by the opposition in the shape of some cynical questions are not adding up and therefore easy to pick apart as propaganda. Let me very quickly run you through this, viewers, and the fact check, because on this show I like to bring you the facts so you're closer to the truth. What is the opposition's claim? This is predominantly the Congress. And I quote Jairam Ramesh, in his 10 years as Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh met Vladimir Putin and Dmitry Medvedev, who were presidents during Dr. Manmohan Singh's terms, 16 times in India or Russia. By comparison, Mr. Modi has only met the Russian president or will be meeting the Russian president for the 11th time in 10 years. Have relations between two countries cooled somewhat under Mr. Modi's watch? Now, viewers, if meetings are going to determine all of this, then I don't understand how superficial we can now become when we look at diplomacy. But let me put the hard facts in perspective. Putin made a statement on the 9th of December 2023, about 6 months ago. Wrong to say that ties have weakened. In fact, they are, quote, Putin progressively developing, unquote. Russian President Vladimir Putin heaped praise on Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his tough stance on defending India's national interests without being, quote, intimidated, unquote, by any pressure, while also acknowledging the policy pursued by Modi is, quote, the main guarantor, unquote, of the progressively developing bilateral ties. So, viewers, Putin himself agrees that these are progressively developing bilateral ties. Nothing is cooled off. So that's the fact check number one, viewers. The other opposition claim, that is Modi's propagandists, make grand claims of having stopped the war between Russia and Ukraine. So what has been said. And viewers, it has also been said that that is one of the reasons why many more grand claims like this will be made after this meeting. What is the hard fact? The Russian embassy issued a statement a year or two ago, if you will remember, and it said NDA and or BJP has never claimed to have stopped hostilities between Russia and Ukraine. However, Russia, in agreement with the Ukrainian side, announced, quote, humanitarian corridors for evacuations of Indians from Sumy by two routes to Poltava and to the territory of the Russian Federation to Belgorod. Then by air, rail and road transport to selective destinations or temporary accommodation in the southern direction, unquote. So viewers, here is another opposition claim that the Russians themselves, including the Ukrainians, contradict. What is the other opposition claim? Between FY23 and 14, so what has been said, viewers? India's exports to Russia stagnated falling from $3.17 billion to $3.14 billion. Meanwhile, the import bill has surged exponentially, rising from $6.34 billion to $46.21 billion. Such a lopsided trade relationship is unsustainable in the long term and has deleterious consequences for our domestic industry. Viewers, what is a fact? While in most cases, this is obvious and it is true, such a lopsided trade deficit would indeed be a matter of concern. But not in this case. The trade deficit has grown over the last 2 years, in particular on account of import of cheap Russian crude oil, allowing India to save billions of dollars from discounts on offer and thereby curb inflation at home. India's retail inflation, for instance, is in line with the top 5 advanced economies of the world. Viewers, had we been importing under stress of the Ukraine-Russia war oil from other markets, not Russia, you would be paying more for your fuel. Transporters would be paying more for their fuel. Aviation companies would be paying more for their fuel. Travel companies would be paying more for their fuel. Power, electricity, everything would have gone through the roof, and that is exactly what has happened in certain countries of the world, viewers. The other opposition claim, according to the Indian embassy in Moscow, at least 50 Indian nationals have joined the Russian army. At least 2 individuals have already been confirmed as fatalities of the war. Will the non-biological Prime Minister take up the case of these youth? Will he ensure their safe return to India as soon as possible? Here are some hard facts, viewers, on this. 5 days ago, in a meeting with his Russian counterpart, External Affairs Minister raised India's strong concern, not my words, his words, over Indian nationals being recruited by the Russian army. India has also demanded that there be a, quote, verified stop to any further recruitment of Indian nationals, unquote, by the Russian army, and that such activities would not be, quote, in consonance with our partnership, unquote. So we've told the Russians, you don't give back our people, this will not be in consonance with our partnership. This is how strong the position is by India. By mid-June, about 10 Indians working as support staff with the Russian military were released and repatriated to India, and that effort is going to continue. Let's open this up, viewers, by tweeting, by subjecting diplomacy to such unfounded, perhaps, and unqualified remarks. Is the opposition guilty of trivializing this very important relationship? Let me first get in the experts. Sushant Sareen is here with us. Sushant Sareen, what do you make of this attack? And you might have seen Jairam Ramesh's tweets. I'm not sure if you have, but if you have a look through them. They're easy to fact check, but nonetheless, what do you make of this?
Rahul, honestly, I don't bother much about what these people, the sniping which goes on. But let me just take the 4 issues which you have raised. Let's talk about oil first. To say that, look, let's talk about the trade balance. So if we have raised the oil purchases from the Russians, what are we doing with that oil? Some of it, of course, we are using for our own needs.
Yes.
But a lot of it is being reprocessed. And what is it being done with it? It's being re-exported. Please ask whoever has tweeted all this to check what are the quantums of re-exports of Indian oil or Indian exports of oil from India, including to Europe. Now, if you don't buy the Russian oil and nobody is buying Russian oil, there'll be a massive shortage in international market. Oil prices will go up, and the very same Europeans who are cribbing about the fact that India is buying Russian oil will corner supplies from the rest of the world, from the Arab world and whichever oil producing country is, and we will be left hanging in midair, right? This is exactly, for example, what happened in Pakistan, where suddenly everybody stopped supplying them LNG supplies about 2 years back, when this war had started and energy supplies were required and there were a ban on Russia. So that is as far as the oil thing is concerned. Secondly, on this whole question of recruits, look, it's not a good thing if people are being recruited as support staff in a war theater. But did this not happen in Afghanistan, when the Americans would recruit Indians through companies in the Middle East and then transport them to Afghanistan to work in American units as support staff? This happens, and very often, even when we put our foot down on it, what happens is you cannot stop individuals from India unless you ban it completely. You cannot stop individuals from India who say that, well, I'm going for a job. How dare you stop me? Otherwise, you give me a job. We've seen this in Yemen. We've seen it in other hotspots. So I don't know what the opposition is all about. It doesn't give me any satisfaction to see Indians going and serving in war theatres. Number 3, on the number of meetings between Dr. Manmohan Singh and Prime Minister Modi. Again, number 1, from 2014, when the Crimea crisis started, Russia has been ostracized. So many of those 16 meetings that you quote, some of them were bilateral meetings, but others were in multilateral forums where you have these pull-asides and other things.
Yes.
And Dr. Manmohan Singh was there for 10 years as Prime Minister, and he would have attended many of those G7, G8 meetings or at the UN or in other multilateral forums where he would have had a chance to meet with his Russian counterparts or the Russian president. So, to say that because Putin was not invited, that is Modi's fault, that he hasn't met him as many times as, somebody like Dr. Manmohan Singh had met him. Again, it doesn't make any sense. And finally, on that whole question of the hostilities business, again, I think the Russians have clarified it. What did we want? This was when the war had started, it was in a very intense phase. And our students, and look, Rahul, your channel, other Indian channels were telecasting the predicament in which our students were caught.
Yes.
We needed to pull them out. How could you pull them out of some of those cities, Kharkiv and others, which were in the eye of the storm? So what did you do? You requested both sides. You used your political and diplomatic capital. You requested a pause in hostilities for maybe a few hours, maybe a day or two, so that you could pull all these kids out and take them to safety. That does not mean that you ask them to stop the war, because as everybody knows, and his aunt knows, that the war continues, 2 years down the...
Yes.
So, if there is a criticism and there is a valid criticism, there should be. Why not? That is what an opposition is meant for. But this is puerile criticism and doesn't really...
This is skittish, this is puerile, this is trivializing. Tehseen Poonawalla, why are we doing this? Why is the opposition so hell-bent on constantly making these puerile interventions? What purpose does it serve?
Rahul, first of all, let me wish the Prime Minister all the best on his Russia tour. He's my Prime Minister. I hope he succeeds, because in his success is the success of India. But I think as a patriotic Indian, which I am duty bound to ask certain questions about the failure of my Prime Minister with regards to our relationship with Russia, time-tested historical relationship and a time-tested friend of India. Of course, he's done some good with Russia, and nobody can take that away, including the corridor for free passage. But listen, when Indian citizens are serving in a war theater between the Russian-Ukraine war, partly due to non-recruitment of the Indian army and this ridiculous Agniveer scheme, the government is duty-bound to bring them back. Goddamn duty-bound to bring them back. And now for these empty words that the real minister makes, who's also the foreign minister, I would like to see some action rather than talk. But let me come to the oil issue, because that's a substantive issue. We went about tom-toying, rightly so, that we are buying oil from Russia. Congress supported it. Rahul Gandhi personally supported it. Said it's a great thing to do. How did we pay for that oil? In Chinese currency. We paid for that oil in Chinese currency. And right now, the oil that we are importing from Russia is reduced drastically, because Russia doesn't want to take Indian currency. Russia doesn't want to take, and you cannot pay in dollars. If the Prime Minister, like Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, the greatest Prime Minister who served India in the last 30 years, was that influential, he would have got an exception like Manmohan Singh ji got for Iran. He didn't manage to get it. Now Russia is saying you buy it in Russian currency, which is obviously overpriced at this moment, which is a loss for India. And lastly, if the Russian oil, which is being re-exported to Europe, rightly so is being re-exported, is it being done by Indian oil companies or private companies that are friends of the Prime Minister? I don't want to get into details. I'm not against private enterprise. Let's understand the common man's got no relief because of this oil deal. Rather, India's paid for it in Chinese currency, which in my eyes is not an act that is in the interest of India.
Okay. Let me just quickly set the record straight. India was in negotiation with Russia to reactivate the rupee-ruble trade arrangement, which would allow us for the settlement of dues in rupees instead of dollars or euros. And that is one of the reasons why the Prime Minister is also in Moscow.
But that's not happened, sir.
No, 1 second. We've also paid in
dirhams. But that didn't happen.
It will happen. Let me give you another anecdotal example.
They stopped the dirham
just to give you an example, viewers. The person who visited, that gentleman there on your screens, who received the Prime Minister today at the airport, the first Deputy Prime Minister, Manturov, he received the Prime Minister but it was Manturov's deputy who received the Chinese president a few weeks ago. So viewers, it's not as if the
How does
Prime
that make
Minister
me
is not
happy?
being, one second, it's not as if the Prime Minister has been given short shrift here. These are negotiations, they take time. The world doesn't change in one day or according to the wishes of one particular Indian opposition party. Viewers, if that were the case, then the Congress should have been responsible for not being able to tackle so many of our foreign affairs challenges. Anyhow, Dr. Ranganathan, where do you come in on this?
Rahul, looking forward to Europe, that 2 years into the Russian invasion of Ukraine that it condemns, continues to buy 13 million metric tons of coal, 43 billion cubic meters of gas, and 1.75 million metric tons of oil from Russia. Looking forward to Europe lecturing India that buys 1.9% of its coal, 0.2% of its gas, and 0.9% of its oil from Russia on morality and ethics. And what to say of the Americans? You were importing 9% of your crude from Russia till a fortnight beyond the Ukraine invasion. You sat on your bum when China violated the LAC in 2020. It was Russia, erstwhile Soviet Union, that helped us in 1971 when you sided with Pakistan. And of the so-called armchair, holier-than-thou activists both in the West and out here, when Russia attacks Ukraine, ban ordinary Russians from football tournaments and singing contests. But when Pakistan attacks India, kills our Jawans, launches terror attack on our parliament, hey, come on, be sensible. Allow ordinary Pakistanis to play cricket and act in Indian films. Has the West or any of the 50-odd Islamic nations put sanctions on China for interning 1.5 million Muslims in concentration camps and forcibly sterilizing them and feeding them pork? So these turnips can stuff their hypocrisy in their hookah and smoke it. Look, the Ukraine war apart, for which I condemn Russia, why should India be singled out for looking after its interests? There are many experts, as you know, out here who would elaborate in detail about the various domains in which we enjoy excellent relations with Russia, with our bilateral trade now more than $70 billion. There's oil and gas, there's economic partnership, there's excellent defense partnership, S-400, AK-203, BrahMos, etc. But let me concentrate very briefly on one aspect that I can elaborate myself to some extent. Science and technology. Now, many may not know, but this year marks the 53rd year of India-Russia science and technology cooperation. Rahul, the ILTP or Integrated Long-Term Program was signed between India and the erstwhile Soviet Union 50 years ago. But it has continued even after the breakup and now enjoys excellent support from both India and Russia. 8 advanced centers have been set up that include Advanced Research Center for Powder Metallurgy and New Materials, Polio and Other Vaccine Manufacturing, Bulandshahr Facility, Indo-Russian Center for Biotechnology, Allahabad. Then there's one Earthquake Research Facility. So all this thing is coming up. Why should India be singled out for looking after its interests?
Precisely. Viewers, this is absurd. Absolutely absurd. I mean, we are not even putting the facts cart before the horse of invective and criticism, etc. And Sushant Sareen and Dr. Ranganathan have explained to us. Sushant Sareen, I just want to ask you this. If at all, and let's be objective here, if at all there is something to worry about in this relationship, what is it? Maybe that's something that the Congress should have picked up on, but it didn't. It's talked about all sorts of other frivolities. Anyhow.
No, I don't think, there is something in the relationship which the Congress can really pick on. I think it's a much more longer term kind of a scenario between India and Russia. See, one is, of course, the fact that, if Russia gets further isolated and gets further pushed into the Chinese ambit, then it creates a problem for us, because then the balancing act becomes very difficult. The hedging, in the international sphere becomes a little more difficult, a lot more difficult, in fact. That is one part of it. The second part of it is that, look, at the end of the day, if you look at the profile of Russia, it is still a very significant player insofar as natural resources are concerned. It's a significant player. It has it's again got a global footprint strategically and otherwise. It's not a country which can really shake up things, but it's a country which can really spoil things for a lot of people. And we've seen its interventions, for example, in Syria and other parts of the world, that it is still a very significant player. But if you look at the long term, if you look at the demographic trends, if you look at the fact that, frankly, the Russian science and technology is still very cutting edge, but it is not what it used to be maybe 30 years back. So there is a kind of a decline which is taking place in Russia, and there will be a rebalancing from an Indian point of view as we go forward. So that's bound to happen. The second concern is, of course, the Russia-China relationship. I think that will be a matter of concern. But other than that, there'll be the minor irritants which are always going to be there. This trade issue is going to be important because until and unless you can work out a payments mechanism, and I think Tehseen is being, I don't agree with him that why are you paying in yuan? You know, when you're talking about international trade, there are various currencies in which you play. And given the fact that our imports and exports from Russia, there is a huge gap, especially after the oil trade. You know, there is no way that the rupee-ruble trade agreement can work anymore. Unless, you know, the trade was relatively balanced, it could have worked. But as things stand right now, it cannot work. So the Russians would rather want payments in, say, yuan, which they can then use for their trade with the Chinese. And it doesn't really hurt us because we are earning foreign exchange also from the Russian oil supplies. And Tehseen is utterly off the mark that if there is a private company which is world competitive, able to process the oil, earn export earnings for India, what is the crib? Tomorrow you will say because there is a textile exporter from India, he's in the private sector, it's not a public sector company. So why are we exporting? Why are we celebrating? There is some other exporter who's exporting. Right. TCS is a private company. It is exporting software. Very bad. Why is a private company making profits by exporting?
Running out of time.
Running out of time.
10 seconds, running out of time. Tehseen Punara, 10 seconds, please. Running out of time.
Look, I would have explained technically why it's wrong to buy in Chinese currency, so I'll do that on another show.
Yeah.
But the fact is that Chinese-Pakistan-Russian axis is worrying for India, not just in oil, but even in wheat procurement. It is something that India has to safeguard. Yeah, there's a wheat.
Okay. Now we're digressing. Now we're on to another issue. Now we're on to another issue. One second. Viewers, I need to wrap this up. We are going to have that meeting in a few hours. We'll be covering that live for you. We'll get out all what has transpired. Let's wait and watch and reserve judgment.
Itni si train services have been suspended, which is where there is a limited movement, limited flow of people.
Heavy rainfall that has lashed several parts of Mumbai. Now there is waterlogging being reported in the low-lying areas of Mumbai. In fact, Harbour Line and Central Line are also affected due to the waterlogging. Meanwhile, the IMD has predicted further heavy downpours in the state during the next 3 to 4 days. And the commute in Mumbai is also disturbed following the waterlogging that has been triggered by the heavy rainfall in the city. And several areas of the city have completely submerged in water after the hefty downpours. Let's listen into some reactions of the residents over there.
अभी बारिश आ रहा है, अभी बारिश तो नेचर है, उसको आना चाहिए। अभी इतना पानी भर जाएगा तो कभी सोचा नहीं था। अभी बारिश के सामने किसकी चलती नहीं है भाई।
बारिश में कभी गड्ढे विड्ढे भी रहते हैं ना, बरोबर वो कभी किधर गड्ढा आदमी गिर गया, किधर बरोबर वो भी नहीं है ना। अभी आदमी कैसे जाएगा बारिश में? ट्रेन बंद, बस बंद, सब बंद।
अंधेरी से आया मैं बस पकड़ने। अभी तो पानी पूरा भरा हुआ है पूरे रास्ते में, चलने के लिए जगह नहीं है, बीच में से चलना पड़ रहा है।
किस तरह का परेशानी हुई और कहाँ क्या करना चाहिए?
सुविधा होनी चाहिए कुछ अच्छी खासी इसके लिए।
सबसे पहले मैं आपको बताना चाहूंगा, बीएमसी का बजट 50,000 करोड़। जी हाँ, बिल्कुल सही सुना मैंने, 50,000 करोड़ का बजट है बीएमसी का, सिर्फ मुंबई शहर का। और इस बीएमसी के बजट का 50,000 करोड़ का नजारा देखिए। ये जो नजारा है वो किसी नदी, नहर, समंदर का बिल्कुल नहीं दिख रहा है, लेकिन वैसा ही दिख रहा है और उससे ज्यादा खतरनाक दिख रहा है। ये नजारा है मुंबई के अंधेरी सबवे का। ये वो सबवे है जो सबर्बन को ईस्ट से वेस्ट जोड़ता है, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट सबवे है जो ईस्ट से वेस्ट जोड़ता है। लेकिन इस सबवे का देखिए पानी का प्रेशर देखिए, अगर मैं आपको अपने कैमरामैन अर्जुन को बोलूं दिखाएगा, पानी का प्रेशर देखिए कितना तेज है। और इसी प्रेशर के तहत से देखिए वो सबवे जा रहे हैं पानी में, ऊपर लोकल ट्रेन चल रही है। और ये सबवे बहुत ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है मुंबई सबर्बन के लिए, क्योंकि ये जो ईस्ट वेस्ट का जो इलाका है वो कनेक्ट करता है। लेकिन भारी बारिश की वजह से पूरा का पूरा सबवे को बंद कर दिया गया है। आसपास के इलाके हैं वो भी पूरे से बंद कर दिए गए हैं। दूसरी तरफ की तस्वीरें दिखाऊंगा, देखिए लोगों को कितनी मुश्किलों का सामना करना पड़ रहा है, क्योंकि ऑफिस का टाइम होते जा रहा है। महिलाएं हो, पुरुष हो, मुंबई में ऐसा होता है कि आप ऑफिस नहीं छोड़ सकते, आपको किसी भी तरीके से जाना पड़ेगा।
Hello and welcome. We start this broadcast with an important message, ladies and gentlemen. The Earth needs its more intelligent and evolved species, which is us, humankind, to stand up for it. How many of us will look away when our mother calls for help? How many of us will drop everything and rush to her aid? If you are one of those, then you will appreciate that this planet is also our mother, Mother Earth. She needs all 8 billion of us to help her, and she needs that help now. And she isn't asking for much. She's just